If I ask you how a serial killer could hunt in the same city over a decade without being stopped, you might think it is impossible. But in Vancouver during the 1990s, it was a terrifying reality. As a dark cloud hung over Vancouver downtown east sides, women were simply vanishing from the street. One minute they are there, and the next minute they are gone. Missing posters line up in the street corners, and families begged for help, and activists screamed that there was a predator walking among them in the street. But those pleas were met with silence, skepticism, and police sympathies. Just 30 miles east of the city, hidden behind the rusted iron gate and buried beneath the layer of mud, lay the answer. His name was Robert William Pickton, known to the local as Willie. To those around him, he was a quiet, kind pig farmer. But behind that unassuming fidget was the demon who transformed his family farm into a graveyard. And sparks one of the most largest and most horrifying crime investigation in Canadian history. Welcome back to Evolve Zone, where we explore the darkest chapter of true crime. If you're new here, please consider yourself to follow and subscribe to this channel, for you will never miss a deep dive into these haunting cases. And now, let us look into the chilling time frame of Robert Pickton. To understand how Robert Pickton got away with his crime for so long, you have to look at where he hunted. In the 1990s, Vancouver downtown east side was a neighborhood hit hard by poverty. Additional to that and pain, many women work at the street just to survive. A large number of them were indigenous women carrying a heavy weight of trauma and negligence. And slowly, one by one, those women started to disappear. Between the late 1970s and 2001, dozens of women vanished from those same few city blocks. They were mothers, daughters, and sisters. They were loved by their family, but on the street they are vulnerable, and someone was taking advantage of that. The people living on the street knew that something was wrong. They knew a predator was out there. One woman, Sarah DeBridge, wrote a hunting entry in a journal before she vanished. In 1998, she wrote, "Am I next? Is he watching me right now? Scouting me out?" The community begged for help, the activists held marches, and family pleaded with the police to investigate. But for years, the authorities brushed it off. They claimed the women were just transit who had simply moved away. They did not see a tragic pattern, they saw a situation they could ignore. And while the police looked the other way, Willie Pickton kept driving his truck into the city, picking up his next victim and taking them back into his farm. While women were disappearing in the city, life went on as normal out on the farm. Willie Pickton and his brother David ran a pig farm in Port Coquitlam. It was a messy, chaotic place filled with rusted vehicles, muds, and roaming animals. But the farm wasn't just for a business. The brother opened a building on the property and called it Piggy Palace. They hosted wild late-night parties for local bikers, workers, and people from the city street. To everyone who went there, Willie was a quiet, kind, dirty guy who blended into the background, and nobody suspected a thing. But in March 1997, 5 long years before his arrest, the police had Robert Pickton in their hands. A sex worker accepted a ride from Pickton and went back with him to the farm. But once they got inside the house, the atmosphere completely changed. Pickton grabbed a pair of handcuffs and locked one of her beds. A struggle broke out. Pickton pulled a knife and stabbed her in the stomach. Fighting for her life, the woman managed to grab a kitchen knife off the counter and stabbed Pickton right back. Bleeding heavily, she broke free and ran into the night, naked and scorching her womb. She flagged down a driver on the road who called for help. Both the woman and Pickton were rushed into the exact same hospital. While Pickton was unconscious in the emergency room, hospital staff searched his pocket and found the key to the handcuff still attached to the woman's wrist. Police arrested Pickton and charged him with attempted murder. It should have been the end of the nightmare right then and there. But just 1 year later, prosecutors dropped all the charges. The reason? They claimed the victim was dealing with severe addiction, making her too unstable to testify in court. They decided her word wasn't worthy taking to the trial. Pickton walked free, and because he walked free, he would go on to target victims for 4 more years. For 4 more years, the Pickton farm operated without interruption. The warnings were ignored, the missing women were forgotten, until February 2002, when a simple mistake blew the entire case wide open. Officers didn't raid the farm because of a murder investigation. They were executing a search warrant for illegal firearms. But as the police stepped into the muddy property and began searching for clustered house, they found things that had nothing to do with guns. A inhaler with the name of the missing woman printed on them, identification card, shoes, and blood-stained clothing. Officers stopped at everything. They locked down the farm, called up for backup, and brought in the forensic team. The nightmare was finally coming to the light. What followed was the largest and most expensive forensic investigation in Canadian history. For months, workers shipped through hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of mud and dirt. They tore down the buildings. They searched meat freezers, septic tanks, and slaughterhouse tools. And what they uncovered was horrifying. Investigators found the DNA, personal items, and the remaining of 33 missing women scattered around the property. The evidence revealed a brutal reality. Pickton had used his farm as a tool to dispose of his victims and feeding off their remaining to the animals on the farm. After Pickton was arrested, police placed an undercover officer in a jail cell with Pickton, pretending to be a fellow criminal. Pickton had no idea that he was being recorded. Sitting in that cell, Pickton began to brag. He admitted on the tape to killing 49 women, and then he said something that shocked even the seasonal investigators. He complained that only he wanted one more. He wanted to make it an even 50, but he said he got careless. Because the case was so massive, the court decided to split up the charges. In 2007, Robert Pickton went on trial for murdering 6 women: Serena, Mona, Adrienne, Brenda, Georgina, and Myrnie. In December of that year, juries found him guilty on all 6 counts. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. It was the harshest sentences allowed by law at the time. But for many families, justice was cut short. Because Pickton had already received the maximum sentences, the government decided to not put him on the trial for other murder charges. Those charges were simply dropped. The aftermath of the trial forced the country to look in the mirror. A massive government inquiry was launched, and the final report was devastating. It had been confirmed that what the families had been saying for years was true, and the police completely failed these women. The report blames poor leadership and broken system for allowing a killer to hunt freely over a decade. The authorities finally apologized, but it was too late. Pickton spent the rest of his life locked away in a maximum security prison in Quebec, but he did not die of old age. On May 19, 2024, at 74 years old, Pickton was brutally attacked by another inmate. The attacker used a broken broom handler, later claiming that he did that because Pickton keep bragging about his crime behind the bar. On May 31, 2024, Robert Pickton died from his injury in a hospital. Robert Pickton is gone, but the scar that he left on Vancouver and the entire country will never fully heal. This story isn't just about a monster hiding on a pig farm. It's a tragic reminder of what happens when the society ignores the people who need the most protection. The women who lost their life were not just the name on the missing poster. They were loved and they will be never forgotten.